Hello, welcome and welcome back. This is Jacob and today we are gonna be continuing the narration and character voicing for the main story of Arknights. And today we're gonna be continuing with the just released episode 11, or as I like to call them, chapter 11 of the main story, Return to Mist. Alright, considering this is episode 1, let me do the, well, technically episode 1 of a new chapter of the story. Let me do the usual thing here. First off, if you are new to the Arknights stories and stuff like that, or rather the main story in general, well, the main story is gonna be the one thing where I always will have to put my foot down and say this is not a good place to start. Episode 11 is, if you're new, not a good place to start. You are like middle of the book right now, and you're just like, good place to begin, right? But yeah, jokes aside, if you want, the playlist for the entire thing is in the comment section below. If you want to just listen to the story from start to finish, I would highly recommend it. Heck, even if you just want to sorta skip the initial act of the game, the rescue of the doctor and the Misha arc, you can do so very comfortably by just literally watching the anime. There is an anime out there. It covers literally the initial arc all the way, initial act all the way up until the beginning of Act 1, and then you can just continue either in the game by yourself or with this very narration series here if you want so. Outside of that, if you are new to the channel and by the end of the video like what you're hearing, please consider leaving a like and maybe even subscribe. There is a lot more narrated content about Arknight stories if you just want to lean back and listen. Alright. And outside of that, let us get in, because I need to give you all a quick little overview of how things will go here. So, as you might already tell, today's first episode will be covering the story for chapters, or rather stages 1, 2, 3, and the cutscene only on 4. But outside of that, like the episode before, or chapter before, we have our 3 different difficulties, from story to normal to adverse, or the challenge mode or hard mode difficulty, however you want to call that. For narration purposes, I'm gonna keep it here on standard environment because it doesn't matter for that part. But we do have one additional thing here, and that is our Book of the Tower Knights. And yes, this will be pretty much the same way, from what I can tell, as Heidi's notes from the previous chapter. So as we're going to be going through the story, I will obviously, every time we complete a stage, like today for example, we're going to complete 111, so the before and after story, and then we're going to stop by into this little book here and read and see what we get from this. And yes, like before, from what I can tell, you get both a story and a little trinket, I guess, when you are completing on adverse. So I'm gonna do my best and continue going with these stages and complete them at the same time on, or rather just complete them on adverse and have everything ready for every time we get to a certain point. And oh boy, do I not like what I'm seeing here at the bottom already. Hell mode 1, 2, 3, and 4? Oh no. But anyway. Let us begin properly here and immediately read what it says, because Book of the Tower Knights. The Book of the Tower Knights, chronicling centuries of life for the Knights of the Tower, lent to you by Dagda for your perusal, serving as a window into Victorian history. Alright, so then, let us begin. One final thing before we begin. Yes, usually I would use the CG scenes that they release with these at the very beginning, obviously. However, with the previous episode, we had a beautiful one which so well transitioned into the opening scene that I would love to do something very similar this time again. But unlike the previous chapter, this time around, we're gonna start with a history lesson first, of sorts. So, you'll see the scene when you see the scene. Let me put it that way. But anyway, let us begin with 11-1, titled Keeping Up Honors. While still beyond the notice of pure and simple children, The seeds have been irrevocably planted for so many things. "26 years ago, 1072. A quick reminder, the current story is taking place in 1098. 5:11 p.m. Overcast. Residents of the Duke of Cumberland, Arknights district of Londinium. Your Majesty, have just received word. Those two pitiful members have died in their cells. An end they deserve. It's time Parliament understood they serve Victoria and not the businessmen stuffing their pockets with coin. I understand your eagerness. Still, some are worried. Your pressure on the court has terrified a great deal of members who had been observing the situation. They may act with impropriety in days to come. They should be fearful. They better know their places. This unbroken succession of wars wills away the riches our forebears accumulated over the ages, yet certain greedy condervings have been reared fattened by them. Fattened. I'm not looking for you to back down, but if we could just go a little slower, as if the condervings know when to stop. Why don't you look for them to feed a little slower? If we don't put our new tax policies in place, then once the enemy sees fit to pounce on Victoria and tear her flesh apart, even the mercenaries will leave us without a second thought. If they consider themselves soldiers clear of mind and honorable of heart, it will stand by your side. I'm afraid the Red Dragon thought as much too, before he was forced to share half of his crown. We all saw the end that befell him. I promise you, no matter the hour, you will have Cumberland's loyalty. Of course, Cumberland the ever on high. How could I doubt where you stand? But you see, Robert, Victoria is in her hour of need this very moment. The right of kings is waning upon this waft of soil. Why does your Majesty think so? It's your birthday the day after. Everyone is hoping to catch a glimpse of your visage. The servicemen are impatient to pay their respects to you, and the populace's cheers are sure to drown out the parade in turn. This year, perhaps, but what of next year? And when it comes time for my Alexandrina to succeed the throne? Robert, we will make our exit, sooner or later. Your Majesty, Your Majesty, Your Grace, pardon me for bothering you without permission, but I've just had a report. There has been an intrusion in the palace underground. The Sigh of Kings is unaccounted for. What? And so is Her Highness Alexandrina. The guard have sealed off all areas of connection and the search is underway, but no leads have surfaced for the time being. Her Highness Alexandrina and the Victorian Realm Blade have gone missing at once. In this sensitive a situation? No noble would be this brazen, but... Your Majesty, I assure you, I will personally handle this affair straight away. Don't be flustered, old friend. Alexandrina's longtime mentor accompanies her. I trust no one will pose a threat to her safety. Her mentor, as in... He treats Alexandrina very well. I can't recall if he's ever even shown me the same level of concern. As for our Sigh of Kings, no matter where it is, it will play its role. You mean the role of our Realm Blade? Huh. It'll be grasped by a righteous ruler before those academics conduct their endless research on it. That is what a Realm Blade stands for. And we all look forward to the coming of that day. I understand. Robert, for your daughter and for mine. Yes, Your Majesty, and for Victoria.
Hold on, miss. Don't run so fast. have to, Alishi. I need to see my father. I know he's at home today. If I'm not quick enough, he'll be off God knows where again.
And yes, that is the same Allerdale that we have met literally at the end of the previous chapter.
The Duke's been up to his ears in business recently, but if he knows you want to meet him, I'm sure he'd be willing to spend the time with you. I don't want him to spend time with me. Then what are you in such a hurry to see him for? I need to tell him loud and clear how I don't want to go to County York. Don't you like the country? The manor out there is a lot more land than it is here. You used to love playing in the meadow, and you always had the farmers' kids there play cricket with you. I love it there. But it's hardly even summer yet. This time of year we usually stay in Londinium. Plus, isn't it strange to you how it's just me and Mom going this time? Calm down for now. I hear from the Manchester's butler how a lot of noble houses, masters and mistresses are summering in the country early this year. It might just be one of those new trends in society, you know? Don't give me that. Alishi, Dad's hiding from me. He wants me out of here. Why? Because I keep asking him to teach me swordsmanship, or because I can never get any Gaulish into my head? Is that why he has a temper at me? Miss Allerdale, maybe it's not my place to say this, but... Well, my manners tutor isn't here right now, and I don't give two tosses what you should be saying or not. I can only offer my own opinion. Miss, His Grace loves you very much. No matter what his decision is, it's going to be for the good of you and the madam. If he wants good for... if he wants good for me, that's more reason he shouldn't be sending me off. I'll miss him. I miss him a lot, you know? Oh, come on, you. What's the blushing for? Because that's the kind of thing only little kids say. I don't want Dad to think I'm attached to him. I need to be stronger, and then I can become a steam knight sooner, just like my great-great-great-great-great-grandmother.
That's a lot of greats.
But, you know, you are a child still. You should try telling him everything you've been feeling. He's a gentle, generous duke, and a kind and caring father. I'm sure he'll understand. So you let me see him? I always support you in your decisions, but you'd be best a little slower, so you don't trip on the plans, or else Mr. Jim the gardener will skip dinner again out of shame for getting you hurt. Tell Jim it's his fault if his plans hurt me.
And runs off.
Really, what do we do with you? And make sure you mind your skirt, Miss Allerdale. We've got an audience with His Majesty at the dinner tonight.
Have you seen Charles Lynch anywhere?
The newly appointed steam knight, was it? Incredible achievement at his age. I'm sure plenty came just for the mob, to mob him.
For the mob? Shame he rushed off not long after he arrived. I hear every steam knight garrison in Londinium got orders to move.
Is it Sargon or Lethanian this time? God save Victoria, no more wars. Every time one happens, I have to sell off a few more of my grandfather's paintings. Rest his soul.
It's an order direct from Parliament this time.
Parliament? Oh, of course, the steam knights sit under Parliament, don't they? You always get word so quick.
The more you're informed, the better you invest, especially in these times. This goes far further than how much pound sterling we make or lose. We're deciding the nation's future, and that's precisely why we need to be in touch with more of the wisest. Major Lynch is...
I think the proper title is Sir Charles now.
Sir Charles is a diligent and upstanding knight, loyal to our nation, to Victoria. He's been aboard his high-speed warship defending us at the northern border for close to 10 years now. Countless meritorious deeds, selected to be a steam knight even at his young age. There's no telling how far he'll go.
I hear he used to live in Londinium. I think right here in Auchterich. Come to think, I've never heard anything about his family.
No matter his family, he's a pillar of Victoria. Those with honor of joining the Steam Knights are much different stuff than in times past. You know the type, the court sucker-playing psychopath to the monarch.
Do I hear you ribbing at someone?
No, I would hardly. All I'm saying is, you see how His Majesty is surrounded by such fine company like Sir Charles, while there are people out there who do nothing but rest their own laurels on their ancestry's honors. They're a pale shadow in... Kicks the shit out of him. Oh dear, whose child is this? What are you barging about the dinner hall for? You'll be dragged off forfeit if you bother His Majesty or His Grace.
That dress, the hair color. Richard Cheese. The Cumberlands are not suck-ups. We deserve steam armor. We'll charge enemy lines and give our lives for His Majesty in Victoria. Miss Ellerdale. Sir Lord, Lady Martha, dreadfully sorry. The Miss is just feeling unwell right now. She doesn't mean to be rude to the guests. I should have put her to bed. The blame is mine. What do you mean the blame is yours, Elishi? No one is allowed to sully the Cumberland's honor. I'll become a brilliant steam knight, like my ancestors were. Just wait until I grow up. I'll prove it to you, all of you. Miss. Excuse me. Don't run so fast. Sir, madam, I need to fetch Miss Ellerdale. If you'll pardon me. Well then, our Miss Ellerdale seems to be a fine, outspoken young girl.
I thought we wouldn't have the chance to meet Miss Ellerdale until the function tonight. How lucky of us, would you say, Martha? Children can always afford to be innocent and naive, but whoever you may be, you won't get away without growing up. Ellerdale pants and gasps as she runs down a long passage. She meant to seek her father, and she has no idea why she squeezes her way into this tiny room instead. It's far from both the ballroom and the Duke's study, practically neighboring the attic. It's probably her fit of temper in this moment. She doesn't understand why her dad wants her gone, let alone why those posh-dressed visitors would say such things about the Cumberlands. Every time life doesn't go her way, like when she loses a cricket match or when her father, the Duke, misses her birthday party, this is where she comes, so she can have a chat with her old friend. God, this picture.
If all forgotten, you were the mightiest knight the Steam Knights ever had. But my father taught me that the true heroes aren't afraid to give their lives, and they're even less afraid of being forgotten, so I shouldn't have argued with them. I really want to grow up soon, and then I'll become one of those glorious Steam Knights too, and rout all our enemies. I'll make every single person who ever talked down on the Cumberlands too ashamed to lift their heads. I probably can't be as mighty as you were, but it'll be enough if I can just be half as, no, 2/3 as mighty. Oh, but my father said that as a Cumberland, I must hold the loftiest goals in mind, so you'll watch over me, can't you? I won't disappoint you, of course not. Is someone here? Is it Elishi?
She doesn't want to be dragged back to the hall so soon, so she stoops down and with a single step leaps behind the steam armor she knows so well. The dilapidated suit shields her as if it was protecting the young descendant. Her dainty frame is completely concealed. Strangers' footsteps encroach. Most of her view is blocked by the suit. Ellerdale can't make out their faces. The most she can glimpse is their distorted reflections. Time's short, and chances are few. We need to confirm a few things. Are you sure this place is safe? It's as secluded as any nook or cranny gets. The rest of the visitors are all in the ballroom still. No one's noticed us leave. No, someone has. Not everyone loves to hang around in opulent halls with nothing to do, Ellerdale thinks to herself.
I don't understand. Why not choose today? The lion's finally left his den for once, and hardly any of the guard are here.
An assassination can't solve anything, and it won't.
Don't tell me you're scared of the gallows, Mr. Duty Man.
Compared to your fear of poverty, I'd say getting hanged's a lighter affair for me.
I'm sick of spending my days with my brain and my wallet in others' hands. Chop chop, please.
Even if the elder dies, there's still the cubs. The crown will remain seated firm on their heads, muzzling us like draft animals.
If we can kill one king, we can kill a second.
Easier said. Listen, we have to be patient. The steam knights have all been sent out. By the time they return to Londinium, the dust will have settled.
What will they do then?
The same as those Paragon few. They'll do nothing for their own gain, and everything for Victoria. Even if it won't be handy to support our actions, they'll understand the decision from on high.
Then it leaves the Royal Guard.
At the parade. Contain every knight of the tower. The key is seizing the city defense forces. Some dukes got fed up with it long ago. Ellerdale's face presses against cold plate, but sweat nevertheless drips down her forehead. It grows harder and harder not to move a muscle, not to mention keeping her breathing stifled. The voices of the two figures grow gradually out of reach, then suddenly are right before her. For a blink, she quivers, trying as hard as she can not to let her body slip into view, curling even her toes in.
Has this lousy thing always been here?
First generation steam knight armor.
First generation? That's over 200 years ago. It's antique by now, isn't it? I'm sure it'd fetch a pretty price.
Haven't you seen the family crest? It's House Cumberland steam armor. Its old owner once stood before the Gaulish artillery in this, braced for 3 whole hours just so His Majesty could flee unscathed together with his shattered people. Only during battlefield cleanup did people realize half the suit has been blown away, and the one inside may well have died soon after bombardment began. But even that, knights still persevere in protecting their own king and kin, reluctant to fall so soon.
And here you're the one of Gaulish blood. I'm surprised you like reminiscing in these noble heroic deeds more than I do.
Fundamentally, I just bear respect for those we call heroes. Their belongings and your measuring of things don't mix. Even if this duke's home is razed to ash one day, the Cumberlands would never sell off this armor.
Huh, damn noble sense of honor, am I right? Utterly meaningless in my view. He's welcome to watch from his ivory tower all he likes, along with the rest of the dukes. No matter who the city's ruler nominally is, it won't make the duke's authority any worse for wear, at least for the moment.
If he took the prudent path, then he wouldn't be Cumberland. Why can't he just let go of his loyalty to the Lions? With colossal change about to greet Victoria, you wish he'd recognize where his loyalty should lie, sooner rather than later.
What's going on down there?
More men than you can count have surrounded the Duke's manor.
What?
Quiet. Listen carefully.
Intruders. Palace underground. Blade thieved. Seal off all major streets in Outeric. No one in or out.
Can you hear what they're saying down there? They're searching for someone.
Who?
His Majesty's entire guard has moved out.
They couldn't have known we've been meeting here, could they? What do we do, sir?
A faint noise comes from in front of them, a sound like someone gently drawing breath. Ellerdale's heart pounds. Alright, and we go straight into our after story. Ellerdale, it's no good habit to eavesdrop. Listen to your father now. Only lowly scoundrels would hide away in the dark to plot the demise of another. Maybe they do it for their own benefit, but such stolen victories never last for long.
Lowly scoundrels, both of them. Dad.
She doesn't want to be caught barefaced, especially not by those awful people. It'll disappoint her father and bring shame on the Cumberland name. If she can just climb out of the window. We need to seize the moment. The soldiers are counting heads right now. We'll mingle with the crowd in the confusion. That way, nobody will realize we were ever gone. Did you hear something? It must have been some little house pest. Don't overthink it. How's a room so cramped going to hide anyone? Whew. She carefully, gingerly covers inside the shadow. Her most loyal ally, the tremendous suit of steam armor, becomes her shield. Her fingers feel to the edge of the window, and if she can just climb over and out, she can avoid this duo's line of sight and climb down the gutter pipe. Her skirt's filthy by now. Alishi won't be happy about this, but as long as she's not caught... She doesn't understand what happened. The sky and ground seem to spin before her eyes, the inside of Allerdale's head whirling with. Her hands and legs lose all purchase, her grasp and footing touch nothing but thin air. She plummets straight from the second story. The garden scenery screams like mad towards her, but before she hits the stiff soil, a soft yet ample cushion catches her. A cushion? From where? No, it's not even a cushion. Allerdale feels herself gently placed upon the ground. She turns to look behind. And creatures confined to legend stand before her. They must have leapt out of a fairy tale just a moment ago, stood there imposingly in the garden. They really do exist. Their golden fur gleams scintillant as the sun. The one at the head has pupils of deep brown, and they are now calmly staring at Allerdale. Allerdale, brought by her father, has had several audiences with His Majesty, and seen generation of portraits of the Aslan kings hung on the palace walls. But this is the first time she cannot help but help the urge to bow her head before such a gaze, for the ones before her seem more awe-inspiring than any monarch. God, the fucking music right now. Yet, a Cumberland does not bow so lightly. Allerdale makes a conscious effort to keep her head held high as it can go, and only then does she notice that the one in the center carries a human astride him. A girl who must be even younger than her, dressed in sumptuous ceremony, languidly sat atop his back, akin to plated gold. In his mouth is held a sword that outsizes the girl by far. A deep, resonant voice arises in Allerdale's head. Allerdale Cumberland, you will meet Vina again someday. This is the first time Allerdale meets them, and the last as well. In the over 20 years to follow, this sight will recur in her dreams. Dreams of that august, golden presence of the girl who was there with them. Until, like the master of the beasts prophesied, she once again meets the one named Vina.
Look, that's Her Royal Highness Alexandrina. Inform His Majesty immediately. We found Her Highness. She's in the garden right this moment. Wait, I'm not seeing things, am I? Isn't that the missing... Her Highness, she found the Sigh of Kings. God save Victoria! God save the king!
Cheers instantly erupt throughout the garden. Servicemen, nobles, servants, everyone swarms to the palace, eyes on Her Highness, bearing the symbol of royal power. What a miracle it is. Hot tears fill the people's eyes, and one after another they reach their hands out in joy.
Miss Allerdale, what are you doing here? Elishi, you can't see them? Them? Who do you mean? Her Highness Alexandrina? She's the only one there, you know? No, them. They're golden. He just said something to me. Did something happen to you? Your skirt's directed to high heaven. Are you alright? I'm not sure. Stars fell into the room upstairs. The Steam Knight armor, it gave those scoundrels a beating. I don't understand what you're telling me. Elishi, I feel really dizzy. You need some proper rest. Who hasn't lost their head seeing all of this? Far too much has happened today. Did you see? Her Royal Highness Alexandrina came back with the missing Sigh of Kings.
The cheers from the gardens were practically shaking all the windows and walls. Hardly anyone believed their own eyes. Her Highness Alexandrina in the flesh, and her age, how young is she still?
A miracle, everyone's calling it.
Yes, a miracle, of course it is. The greatest difference between miracles and coincidences is that miracles never descend for no reason in the time and place they do. It'll be His Majesty's birthday soon. How could I not consider this magical affair a splendid portent of things to come?
Do give that a rest. They put on this whole auteur-style drama for the merriment of anyone watching. What I'm suddenly minding is the opinion some dukes have of His Majesty and our Duke of Cumberland.
Leave it there. All worries on the back burner now. The dinner party's about to begin.
You're quite alright. Let's enjoy everything here to the fullest.
Both of them at the same time? God save Victoria. It seems the people's attentions are on Alexandrina's adventure. Your Majesty, you knew beforehand Her Highness would enter the cavern underground? It was a fine opportunity. With me out of the palace, the diligent guards could move easily chatter or perhaps sleep on the job, and thus let this little intruder of ours slip by. So you planned all this? Half was his fine improvisation. He doesn't like a harmless little practical joke on us humans now and then. If we went along with this, does that imply he too considered this a necessary deed? Londinium will be soon for summer. Awfully stuffy days and torrents of rain from time to time. You're planning to send Allerdale and the wife out of the city yourself, aren't you? Your Majesty, my intention have always been but one. I simply... Robert, you adore your daughter as do I. We are to wager everything for Victoria's present, but they are Victoria's future. On the off chance we do fail... We will not, Your Majesty. I will ensure the worst case does not happen. If it takes my very life. I'm filled with great courage and confidence at our prospects. Still, it doesn't hinder me from planning just the most minute escape option for Alexandrina. She'll be ruling Victoria sooner or later. Is it so wrong to have her get to grips with this city in advance? And a similar farce still more or less served to right the balance on this stifling seeming afternoon. Under all this pressure, the people's spirits need a little boost. That is what we're met. That is what we're met here for. Of course, we all have some premonition. Hence why we made these calculations, correct? Come, Robert. Once you're done with your tea, we'll be due downstairs.
I hear music. That's the band Dad and His Majesty invited? Yes, Miss Ellerdale, the dinner party's about to begin. Everyone's so happy. Aren't you too? Elishi, will the day go on like this forever? Days. Me and you, and Dad, and Mom, will always be together? I don't know, Miss Ellerdale, but I believe nothing ever stays completely the same, just as the flowers in the garden. No, there are some things that will never change, Elishi. I'll grow up to be a steam knight, just like Sir Lynch. No, even greater than Sir Lynch. I'll protect you all, and I'll drive every scoundrel away. I'll uphold the glory of Cumberland, just like my great-great-great-great-grandmother. I promise this, Elishi. You'll see. Miss. I'm not leaving Londinium. You're not allowed to leave either, Elishi. I'm going to tell Dad. This is my home. Just like every Cumberland's done before me. I'll keep it. I'll protect it until my life is over. I swear.
Alright, and that's our first dive into the past. Now for a second one. Stage 2. A sliver of light. Nobody can promise the coming of peace, but that won't stop them in their stride. Four years ago, 1094. So also 2 years before the main story kicks off. 3:25 PM, overcast. St. Marcel's College, Auchterich District of Londinium.
Hey, look at all the soldiers in Parliament Square, all the crossbows and cannons. You've got nowhere to run. Stop crying, you're not supposed to cry. Chin up, you're playing the knight. I'll have you all killed. I've got my Knights of the Foyer. It's the Knights of the Tower. Most of them surrendered, and all of the ones who won't give in will be like you soon. They'll be tried by us, and the fiery rage of Londinium we represent. Who can try a king? Used to be nobody could, maybe nobody else in the future either. You're a dead end, Your Majesty. You blocked Victoria's forward stride. Every machine in the city stopped on your command, plus you wanted to take the daily bread away from all the suffering people, stealing every last penny out of their purses. Our hands toil for nothing but tomorrow's sun. It's you and your greedy attendants that forced us to stain ourselves in your blood. Forward, soldiers, for Victoria! Victoria, I am Victoria, you insolence. Victoria won't pardon you for this, even if I become a Spectre. Spectre! First you run over to those steps, and then fall down, and then you say that. Who's that running around the doorway here? Ralph, Anna, you little pair of mischief makers. It's Miss Molly. You were just getting to the most fun part. Anna, quick, get on the steps. We're going to do the hanging. A hanging? A hanging? Who taught you children such a cruel game? It's how the grown-ups in Slantworth's Alley play. Slantworth's Alley? There's all manners there. Did you watch some kind of silly show? Who took you to see? Tom the cobbler. He was drinking a lot of yellow stuff and it was all dripping off his face. And then he ran up on the stage while they were up there, and he was yelling and screaming, "I won't let you disgrace His Majesty the King. He was a great among greats." That bloody Tom. No, that's not the language to use in front of the children. Oh, what's he thinking? Taking children to a pub? Let's keep going, Anna. I want to play one more time before supper. Then it's your turn to be one of the one that dies. Ralph, you promised, you can't fib. Oh, your majesty, pardon these children for disrespecting you. They've never seen you nor heard your voice before. All they know are rumors of you from all the city's gossip peddlers. Miss Molly, you've never seen the king before either. You don't get to be all hoity-toity with us. Come on, run, Anna. I'm chasing you. Out of the way, traitors. Sooner or later, you'll all be torn apart by these beasts within. Children, this is hardly proper of you. If you don't want punishment, you'd best cut that out. Never let any of the clergy or teachers see... See what? Oh, good. Lady Golding. Ralph, why are you so flushed?
Cause...
We're playing a game, ma'am. It's really fun. A game? Very well, I understand. Return to your bedroom soon, and don't forget to do today's homework. Yes, ma'am. Additionally, Ralph, Molly and... Molly may only be older than the two of you by a few years, but she is still your teacher.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry, Miss Molly.
Alright. Listen to the ma'am now. Off you go. I can't believe you didn't scold the two of them. Ralph and Anna, I don't blame them. The children just don't understand what cruelty is yet. They have an innate desire to learn. If they can't learn anything proper from books or ourselves, it's only natural they'll turn to the other places. So many say that hanging transformed Victoria. Lady Golding, do you agree? Ask the same question to different people and you only get different answers. The machines of Highbury's munitions factories certainly never cease to wear, but the grand houses of Outeric have had many a change in ownership. But all I know is that these poor children still come in droves to our school each year, bless their hearts. They're in need of help, much as I was 20 years ago. I thank the school. If it hadn't if I hadn't lodged here, I would have long died of some illness or other. Molly, what happened just earlier gave me an idea. An idea? You mean to the sets of plays you're holding? Indeed. So they're meant for the children, but they've only just learned to read. Won't it be a little too soon? Better this than all the showy slipshod stuff in Stalwart's Alley. For young children, acting others' roles is tantamount to a game. The complex implications might escape them for now, but at least they can get a little taste of the emotions and power within the words for themselves. I do hope you're right. It comes with another upside too, no? The children won't be nodding off in my literature classes anymore. I suppose so. What matters to me is that we can use up just a little of their energy. It'll be a great relief for me.
Excuse me, madams. Bookshop's closing in advance.
Mr. Adams, you're quite early to shut today.
Haven't you heard yet, ma'am? There was a disturbance at the Duke's office in Camden this morning.
Disturbance? What kind of disturbance is it to attract Outerig? It's quite a ways away.
One of the office admins got beaten to death. Duke of Stafford's nephew, apparently. Only just rocked up in Londinium a week ago.
Oh, rest his soul. Have the police caught the murderer yet?
That's the problem. Witnesses say the suspect scampered into a defense force barracks. Seal the street. Move. Don't let him get away. All eyes out.
And now he's fled into Outeric? Really?
Hard to say, ma'am. Probably not that simple.
How strange. Are these the defense force men? My eyes might just be playing tricks, but their uniform seems a little different to what I remember.
I've got a friend who lives in Camden, ma'am. He says there's soldiers just flooding the streets nearby, all of them wearing that uniform. There's even word that, well, a duke secretly slipped into Londinium just yesterday.
How? How though? Wasn't that prohibited by law? Thank you, Mr. Adams. These books are too heavy. I'll pick them up next time. Molly, back to school, as quick as we can.
No one? Didn't they say they saw someone hiding in the alley? We can't let word of the Duke spread to the city. If we do, our entire operation today is... God damn that blast. Didn't even see it was a man or a woman. What the hell are these intelligent agents doing in their bloody Londinium offices? Good for nothings. Got the Duchy's people running circles around them. Luckily I landed a bolt. Keep up the chase. They can't have gone far.
Wait. Lady Golding, did you see something? Nothing urgent. Molly, you go back to the school for now. Gather all the children and make sure they don't stray out into the streets. What about you? I'm going to see a friend. Prepare some hot water and a clean towel in the office for me. I'll be back as soon as I can. Sorry, bear with me. School things are very rudimentary. More often we have children falling over while making a racket, not so much being shot by soldier crossbows. Who knew you could sew up wounds? With the scant yearly donations to the school, we can't afford to hire that many staff. I have to moonlight as the school nurse a lot of the time. After seeing you move so silently on the street, I wasn't imagining you would feel the pain. Oh, don't jest with me. You're the only one in all of Londinium who I can truly catch my breath with. I can suture your wounds, Heidi, but I can't disinfect it. You'd best be off to a hospital straight away. I don't think so. Can you tell me why? I thought we were friends. Golding, I shouldn't have come here with you in the first place. I haven't wanted to pull you or the children into all the mess. So the soldiers are after you. Are they really the Duke of Stafford's men? Did Adams tell you that? I thought he would keep mum. He's your friend, and mine as well. He was the one holding the book club we met each other at. And don't you forget that. Could I ever? You were a ruthless one then. A fast food work of pop culture of subservience. Its only use is fueling chatter between ladies of the house and girls at tea time. Your words for my newest work. But I did say that the author's talents lay far beyond. And I hadn't conceived that the most tasteful of Londinium's critics was such a simple, unassuming teacher. I could read into every line you'd written, and for each one, the 100 lines you hadn't besides, those were your words, Heidi, uttered by you. Never would I doubt the unspoken understanding between us. Then let me help you. We can be more frank with each other, Heidi, just as we always have. Golding, did I ever tell you that years and years ago, I had the fortune of meeting a Laterano cleric who wasn't a sancta? She became my waifu. I have a body pillow at home. What? Nothing. She once lived in Londinium too. She may well have some ties to this school's origin. Who is she? She's... Lady Golding. Goodness. Oh, hold on. You have a guest? Who might this be? A literary circle friend. Is something the matter, Molly? Outside, ma'am. I thought you would have heard.
From far away come strange noises. The sordid Londinians are quite inured to. They confuse them all too easily, at first with the sound of an exploding steam boiler carelessly lit, or the sound of the mechanical foul beast the children so love slicing through the air. But as the ground and building tremor becomes steadily apparent, an instinctual panic strikes everyone. By protection of the kings, Londinium has never once met catastrophe before. What they face now is without a doubt a different sort of menace, and in those of long age, something stirs. The nightmare of 20 years ago has come again. The sign of war. In the midst of the room's silence, the rumble grows thicker.
It doesn't make sense. They were only catching a few criminals. Why did they bring out such a display of force? If we could make sense of every thought in the midst of a fellow man, many a tragedy would never come to pass. Molly, if you could check whether the soldiers in the streets are still there. Yes, ma'am. I have to leave now. I know. I'd love to urge you to stay, but I know full well that not even heavy artillery could stop you. I know you've noticed too, Golding. Another scene change is being wrought upon Londinium tonight. The Duke of Stafford's troops are on the offensive at Parliament Square as we speak. The Duke of Cavendish's men arrived at the outer wall a long time earlier. The coup d'etat over 20 years ago and the turmoil it brought were at least the briefest thing for the citizens here, but this time I couldn't say. This will likely develop into an interducal war, and its epicenter will have been Londinium. I've come into this intel. It has the potential to save tens of thousands of lives. The sort of thing I need to deliver out of the city before tomorrow's daybreak. War, you say? I'm afraid so. The fire of war could spread to other cities at a moment's notice. Every Victorian needs to make preparations. Victoria's peace has endured for over 2 decades since His Majesty's passing. Many call it a miracle, but I long cease to believe it a miracle of any sort. No one would abandon their own interest, especially when its vastness is that of Victoria's. It instead gave those with the stuff to plunder it all the more to consider. We pitiful that live in this crack of history could only simply shut our eyes and proclaim it so. Peace. Huh. Who would have thought deathly illness would drive Stafford to such measures? And who could have predicted how the other dukes would respond? Without the efforts of people such as yourself, this war would have broken out 20 years ago, instead of being delayed to today. Are you trying to soothe me, Golding? I'm only stating the reality, nothing more. You needn't reveal your goals to me, Heidi, let alone explain what your people have been planning all these years. You need only answer me one thing. Will peace come again? It will. That's what we've been striving for all along. We will protect our homeland. That is the truth, throughout the ages, that we Victorians have believed in. Even if countless will die in these streets outside, even if with each end in sight upon the road of yours, the next preordained war comes to greet you. Indeed, because war will ultimately end. It may end at the hands of us or our posterity. When the smoke clears from the skies shrouding Victoria, no more will the children's smiles be crossed with haze. Very well. I'm willing to believe in you, Heidi. To try and believe. Should I ever be able to return to Londinium, Golding, then I'll tell you everything when we meet again. Remember that. Remember your promise. Come back alive.
Alright, and we move into the after story. Several hours later.
Ralph? Where's Ralph gone? Oh, heaven's sake, everything's a mess. How can he still be running about? Miss Molly, Ralph said grown-ups keep mentioning artillery, but he's never seen it for himself. Avalda, he can't have gone out in the street. They've started firing out there already. The bolts and the shells flying all over. I'll go and find him. Lady Golding, it's far too dangerous. Ralph. I... Come here, now. Lady Golding. Don't fear. Good boy. I'm right here.
Aw.
Let's hurry back. It'll all be better then. It'll all be alright. Lady Golding, Ralph, you're back. Oh, wonderful. I'm sorry, Miss Molly. Oh, you scared me to death, Ralph. Are all the children here then? Yes, ma'am, I've counted. About just now. A shell landed nearby. What even for? Just who exactly is warring with who? It doesn't make sense. Everything was fine this morning. How could this have happened to Londinium so suddenly? Don't cry, Molly. No tears in front of the children. Yes, ma'am. Hold my hand tight. At least we're all together. We have the Defense Force and the Steam Knights. They'll protect Londinium. They'll protect Victoria. The Steam Knights? I think I just saw them. Are they the really tall ones in all black and... It was a shadow from a street lamp, wasn't it? Liar. It was definitely one of the Steam Knights. Tom the Cobbler always goes on about them. He says how they're the symbol of Victoria's grandness. High over the valley and over the rivers, rumbly rumble. Tell us the sound. Shan't be the thunder and shan't be the gale. The grand knights of grandest Victoria crowned. I knew that song when I was little too. My singing teacher said that every year on the king's birthday, everyone gathered in the square to catch a glimpse of all the Steam Knights' information. Can a Steam Knight really fly? Apparently, all they do is run very fast, faster than any lightning or storm. With all the steam they emit on top, they must look like they're stepping on clouds. This is pants. We don't even have a king now. I've never seen a parade once. Also, they told me their teacher once saw something even greater. It was the year Victoria had just defeated Gaul, and to celebrate the then king's birthday, dozens of Steam Knights all returned to Londinium together. Their suits were draped in flags of Victoria, and once they all marched down the street of the palace of Vestaleg, it was like one giant flag all at once. And then everyone heard a howl, even clearer than thunder. A howl? Yes, a howl. The people who were there say it was Victoria's emblem, the symbol on our flag, coming alive. Because ever since that day, Victoria had officially surmounted Gaul and became the grandest nation of all Terra's lands. I'm sorry, Lady Golding, your father was Gaulish. I forgot. You needn't apologize to me, Molly. You and I, Ralph, and the hundreds of thousands of children that grew up here, all grew as Londinianers. Perhaps the same goes for the one in the suit of steam armor outside. Do you know a Steam Knight, Miss Golding? Charles Lynch. He used to live in Outherig. Tom the Cobbler was an old friend of his, hence why he loves to tell tales of His Majesty and the Steam Knights so much. In fact, Lynch was the last Steam Knight His Majesty ever titled in his life, and the last Steam Knight titled up till now.
The night drags on, for so long that the children hear every tale of the Steam Knights told in Londinium, and first light has just broken. The sound of artillery stopped sooner than they expected. Past the witching hour, the streets outside have more or less returned to silence, but no words are needed, as they all continue to stay huddled indoors. No one dares rush to see the state out there. Near to every Londinier has been awake the whole night. The same question circles in everyone's minds. Come next morning, will Londinium be different? The next day.
Seems like everything's the same. Where have the Duke's men gone? I knew it. I knew the situation would come under control, lickety split once the Steam Knights showed up. I just didn't think it'd be this fast. Molly, some way or another, we're going to need to buy essentials. We don't know what might happen next.
You two, what are you doing out here?
Mr. Adams. Excellent. For the children, knowledge is just as indispensable. Especially under present circumstances. Mr. Adams, could you bring me those sets of plays from yesterday? And I'm afraid I'll need a few more too. These fairy tales, along with those first steps into mathematics and physics there, and a copy of the home medical guide. If you could parcel all that, please? Wait, what's that noise?
From not far away sound uniformed footsteps. They're unlike those the Londiniers have heard at parades. These are heavier and more urgent. The Palace of Vestaleg, the Shard, Parliament Square. One flight after another in seamless succession through Outerig's almost desolate streets, through the center of Londinium, Victoria's heart. As the footsteps press forward this most ordinary of streets, some of those ducked to the side of the street finally catch clear sight of the advancing army. Or better said, they see clearly the soldiers' appearances. The hordes, each shape their own, all condensed in ominous black, not even the rushing yawn of daylight casting a shine on them.
Sarkas. They're Sarkas mercenaries. If they are mercenaries, I assume they'll leave soon. And then Londinium will be back to the way it was, won't it?
They don't know it yet, but in the years to come, many a thing will change completely. For one, the Sarkas army won't ever leave Londinium. And for another, from that day forth, no one will ever see steam armor in her streets again. Alright then, and now before we continue with stage 3, we will make a quick little detour up here in our little booklet. So on stage 1, once you complete it on address, you get these two little things. We get a bunch of text about Livia Gildas, and we get a little picture here. So let's go over the picture first. A lookout tower standing tall in front of the palace. Being from several centuries ago, the tower has long since crumbled, leaving only a sketch to provide posterity a notion of what it originally looked like. And our text here says, Lady Livia of House Gildas was a former attendant to Lady Patricia of House Artorius. She was named a knight for the tower at the age of 14. She was 26 years old when a sudden windstorm swept the royal capital. Though she suffered grievous injuries, she escorted the royal family to an underground shelter, where they remained unharmed despite the windstorm causing massive devastation in the nearby areas over a period of 3 days. Lady Livia herself, however, died of her injuries. After the calamity passed, the royal palace was built on top of the shelter, and a watchtower was erected at the spot of Lady Livia's passing in honor of her service. Alright, and now we will continue on with stage 3, our first red stage here. Titled simply Steam Rising. People aren't obstinate, life is. Living is irrevocable. Keep missing the dots. People aren't obstinate, life is. Living is. Irrevocable loss is. So let's begin. One year ago, 1097, 4:56 p.m. overcast. Vinicius Factory number 11, Highbury District of Londinium. Oi, where's the last batch of polymer prep coming yet? What do you mean it hasn't? This takes the piss.
Who was in charge of transporting those materials?
It was, the one in charge,
What are you dithering for?
It was Feist.
That boy.
He went out first thing this morning. Should have been back ages ago.
Who went with him?
Tommy, Pato, and Day.
They're not the same workshop. How'd they get on the same shift?
They all get along like a house fire. Keep mucking together all the time. Feist's their little ringleader. You hit a snag from the sound of it.
Small potatoes, nothing more.
Small potatoes. Catherine, you know what day it is today, right?
How could I forget? I've been fearing for my life I'll upset our officer if I sign, and it looks like foul scratch. I started practicing my signature 10 whole days ago.
That's practice under your belt then. The general is stressing importance hard on the handover ceremony in 2 days. Reportedly, the Defense Forces head is showing too.
Want a cig?
Pass one here. You know why it is all your factory's people have stuck around until now, don't you?
We work very hard.
That's a given. You do work very well. We're alike in that regard. Work, get paid, scrape a living. But our employers know all too well the more exceptional a merc's work, the less he can be trusted.
Standard fare. Old manager of this industrial park, Cyril Humphrey, never trusted us either before you dragged him away.
Don't make trouble for me, Catherine. The mercenary's tone is placid, like he's the one asking Catherine if she wants a smoke. And he so often does. This is his job. Offering a few disobedient Londinian workers to him is almost the same as the screws she tightens on a daily basis. Catherine taps her cigarette into a bag, can't have an ash falling into the machinery.
I've told you more times than I can count. If you want efficiency maintained, our factory can't afford one fewer worker.
I admire you a fair bit, Catherine. Even a typical merc might not even have the guts you do. You've got the stuff. Thing is, it's impossible to take anything too far. Londinium's got over 100 munitions factories just like yours. Even if this whole place was dead empty, the regent wouldn't care.
Nothing will change. The ceremony will come the day after. We'll hand over everything as promised, and all our workers will be there. No need for you lot to worry about the thing.
I'll take your word for it then.
Of course. Not got a lighter. You're just holding your cig there.
You hold on to it after all. Londinium smoke always have a sort of engine oil to them. Can't ever get over it. Catherine, what do we do? She pinches her cigarette out.
Off to the loading area.
Pato, done there. Just this crew left.
Sort it out. If this keeps up, they'll be waiting a whole week at least to get more polymer prep.
Polymer up to our ears. It's just batch after batch coming in. The hell are the Sarkas building?
I haven't seen. Granny doesn't let me anywhere near the assembly line. Only her most trusted workmates get to climb up that walkway. The longer this keeps up, the more it must be very important to the Sarkas.
Not a bioweapon, right? We've been pumping out auto crossbows for the Sarkas the last few days in the workshop.
Could only be. Still got so many ducal armies outside eyeing us.
Be ghastly letting the Sarkas get away with this, I tell you.
We've got to stop them, Pato. We can't be helping the Sarkas fend off our own.
Think it'd be any use if we destroy this batch of prep? Think we'd get sentenced?
I'll step up if that's what it comes to. I'm not afraid of being taken in. You can't do that.
Granny?
Grab him.
Pato, do it! On the fly, she grabs a small file and throws it. With a clang, the worker's span flies out of his hand and onto the ground.
Do you know what it is you're doing?
I'm stopping the Sarkas.
You're making a scene.
I've got it all planned. It won't drag on any of you in. I'll tell the Sarkas I did it, and then
you'll die at the Sarkas' hands. You're making yourself out as a hero, aren't you?
I'll try and flee. I've been planning this forever.
You're using the cavalry modified. You're hiding onto the cargo track and slipped out of Highbury that way.
So you knew?
I've been living in this industrial park for over 50 years. Whatever silly business you try, it won't slip by me.
Granny, listen to me.
I received some news. There's a rebel organization active in Sudan right now. They rescued a whole number of people from the Sarkas, and they've even taken back some plates. They call themselves the Londinium Citizens Self-Salvation Corps. We're going to meet them. Are you now? And then what?
What?
Are they lacking this for smiths? Are you going to assemble and automate production pipelines for them? Maybe design the next generation of crawlers? You can't even put a single armament together. You're going up to the people at the Self-Salvation Corps and tell them you want to bash Sarkos' heads in with a spanner? I'm learning. I know the stories you've told me, like how you got selected to build steam armor when you were young, and I've heard you spending night after night polishing up power conduits. I don't get it. We're Londinium workers. You've been teaching me this time. You've been teaching me that since I was little. You've told me how our factory built modern Victoria. But now, we're lowering our flag at a handover ceremony and raising the circus ensign. And then what? We're taking the assembly line we're so proud of and producing weapons for the circus with it. And those weapons will end up pointed at the Victorians. How can you bear life like this? Like what? Life like this is our life. The life you and your parents have always been living. Look at this factory. Nobles with titles longer than their surnames, business tossers with lives built on trade, even the circus. We've had people pausing as its masters come and go. But the assembly line's still there. The machines still haven't come to a halt. Each river that passed through our hands is still in the place it's meant to be. Whoever might be occupying the palace in the middle of Londinium, the city we built will still be tomorrow and the day after that. But I don't want a tomorrow like this. What kind of life is a life without freedom? It's being alive at most, that's it. If this factory, if Londinium isn't ours any longer, then what was the point of everything we've made for it? You know, Feist, 25 years ago, that night when the flames lit up the sky, your dad said much the same thing to me.
Boss, the suckers are almost back.
You're free to go wherever you want. But from this moment on, you are forbidden from ever setting foot in the factory again, Feist. A worker who won't finish the job with his own hands isn't fit for the job. Anyone who wants to go with him, I won't stop you either. Just remember, you step out of this door and you are no longer one of us.
Alright, we continue to the after story. Several days later. Well, inventory check. This lot of factories has handed in its designated amount of material. Excellent. Miss Catherine, as you know, taking on Londinium's hundreds of factories and ensuring their smooth operation is by no means a simple feat. Thus, my only option is to personally see every handover completed. Some unpleasantness always comes part and parcel, but this handover out of this final set of factories has been the smoothest. I must thank you for your willing cooperation and for sparing me so much time.
I just don't want to do anything that be of no avail.
I admire your attitude, Miss Catherine, but I'm afraid your heart of hearts doesn't agree with you.
You mean?
I hear a few days ago some workers fled your factory. Being the case, I'd like to take stock of personnel while I'm here and have a look at your factory's names.
It was my grandson who ran.
Catherine. Oh.
Young'uns tend to do without thinking.
Very plain dealing of you, Miss Catherine, but frankness alone will not quell this matter.
Sir, I can't guarantee you everyone under me is of one mind. I don't have that capacity. I can only guarantee this factory hands in its designated material quota.
Could I ascertain, are you asking me to let him go?
He's a single tyke, every hair on his head out of place. He's hardly going to affect this factory's operation.
But you could. I've heard about your past deeds, Miss Catherine. No wonder you were chosen as a workers' representative. A woman of honor. I esteem you for it. But we always must nip these things at the bud. Or are you able to guarantee me that your grandson won't become a traitor to us, such as if he joined the Self-Salvation Corps, that's all the vogue?
I've no need to guarantee it, sir. Young'uns always think they can do something. but it always turns out they don't know what it is they're facing. They'll nip themselves.
I understand your sentiment. Indeed, pursuing a single escapee worker pales in comparison to the gravity of ensuring a dozen factories continue to steadily operate. I can overlook this affair, Miss Catherine. But I do hope you're able to keep your promise.
As long as I'm in charge of this factory, there'll never be a problem.
Excellent. In that case, it's time we get on with the handover ceremony. Just our goddamn luck. I wanted to go to the factory too and watch the flag rising. Quit griping. You can see it from here anyway. Just tough it out. There's none of the gravitas here that you get watching on sight. Man, who the hell knew we'd actually take Victoria's capital? Dream of that in the past and you'd kick yourself. True enough. Still, next comes the hardest period. The dukes are all eyes on us. If we were good for anything, we wouldn't have seized Londinium so handily. That was close. Lucky these mercs have no idea the plate has a gap you can get into here. Feist makes his way to a pipeline entrance. He's done his survey. Somewhere along this passage is a connection to Sudan. But now on the verge of setting foot inside, he has doubts after all. He wasn't kidding, Pato. He's thought over every difficulty he might potentially face. Critically though, and what he never said, was that he didn't have a plan for every problem. Granny wasn't wrong, after all. He's just a smith. He has a head that passes for smart and relatively hardworking. These two things ensured he could muddle through life in Londinium's peaceful years, but there's no telling if they'll save his life right under the Sarkis' noses. Tommy was right. If only those massive hulking metal lads were still around. He's all grown up and still never seen a steam knight before. Bang, clang, bang. With the factory ceiling so high and the hatchet so small, the view of the sky can't help being minuscule from within. Its ever-changing shades cast a light projection down into the factory. Never changing is the sound of the assembly line, one hunk of metal striking another, as well as the sight of old Granny standing at its side.
Think it's Zul, don't you? Hold on to your hammer and spanner tight. If you really want to do something, you got to persevere. You strike once and you get nothing more than a hunk of metal, of beaten metal. You strike again and again and you can make steam armor. You strike again and then your child and your children's children carry on striking. And we've got Londinium.
Should he head back? Should he go in? He has no idea. From far away comes the sound of a Sarkis bulge, and Feist follows that sound. Atop every factory in Londinium stands a flag. The flag stands for Victoria. Not once since this factory founding has that ever changed. But that as of today has changed. Sign here, Miss Catherine. Without hesitation, Catherine, upon the document that embodies transferal of factory authority, signs a practiced signature. And now, the final changing of the flag. Go. Yes, sir. Stay, Miss Catherine. Be what it may, you are currently witnessing history.
Sir, can I light a smoke?
By all means.
Sir, just as you've heard of me, I've heard about you too.
Oh?
Gaul.
Yes, my father was a Gaulish loyalist, that's no secret. If you're querying me how I feel at this moment, Miss Catherine, an instant of joy that there was no blood shed throughout this procedure, but outside of that, my heart is filled with nothing but sorrow. Not far away, Sarka's soldiers ferry over the flag that stands for them. Meanwhile, an additional 2 Sarkas prepare to lower the current one. Catherine can see the happiness on their faces, and beyond them a resplendent sunset glow. Catherine knows it all signifies the dark isn't long away. Feist turns his head, and from this position he just so happens to be able to see the factory's flagpole towering high. He stands there and watches as Victoria's flag descends, foot by foot. A moment later, foot by foot, the flag of the Sarkas rises. As if nothing changed at all. He takes a deep breath and sets foot into the pipeline. It's pitch dark within. Apprehensively, he sets off for the direction of Sudan he recalls. All of Londinium's munitions factories have now completed the handover, and on this day they have exchanged Victorian flags for those of the Sarkas. They flutter in the breeze. Alright then, so let's finish off today's session with stage 114, the scene only stage, titled The Stuff of Ideals. What is sought is but a peaceful land that allows survival. The year 1098. 1:03 p.m. overcast. We have caught up with time. Palace of Vesthaleg, Londinium. Even before Londinium was a nomadic city, the Palace of Vesthaleg stood here. Its name was originally plain Vesthaleg. The Draco royal family convened its ministers here in this place and used their beloved gold and ruby to decorate the outer walls. Said decorations went up in flames during the Great Fire 300 years ago. Still, the building's skeleton remained, and it bore witness to the first Aslan king's coronation. Thereafter, Vesthaleg formally became the Palace of Vesthaleg, to commemorate the age of peace and prosperity founded by the Draco and Aslan kings in joint. 26 years ago, the last Aslan king was captured in the same palace by Parliament's standing forces. And now this is no longer the building where the Victorian Parliament assembles. Sat at the conference table is but one person, not Draco nor Aslan, but Sarkas. A voice on the terminal. Still no sign of movement from the Duke of Godolin. Ever since the Viscount's life was attempted, our activity in the domain, apparently the word there means domain, and it's actually read out as domain as well, so domain has been greatly restricted. Lavish salons held every night at the Duke of Normandy's residence, but the flow of raw steel is extremely suspect, and all intelligence personnel have turned up empty-handed. Any sound from Dublin is drowned out by the Duke of Wellington's high-speed battleship roaring. We've as of yet been unable to penetrate into the Iron Duke's duchy, but no other duke would be able to impede the veteran, without a doubt. The Marquess and company have finally given up on the Duke of Stafford's inheritance. The Duke of Castor admitted envoys and gifts on New Year's Eve. Activity from all dukes has been growing increasingly frequent since last winter. It may be a sign they're about to reach a conclusion. Preparations for Londinium remain at the same pace as... Hold for a moment, sir. Sorry. What? You're sure? Lithanian? 3 days ago? This is too slow. Yes, it looks like they've finally found results after their diplomatic peacemaking. New cipher's just been decoded. It's word from the front line, General. Yes, I need to notify you ASAP. 3 days ago, the Empress's voice grandiloquently left the Duke of Windermere's domain. We didn't discover contact between the two sides in time, but just today, a fortress changed course and is sailing straight for Londinium. The one that's been nearest us over the past 2 years. It's pushing directly for Lithanian. It's pushing directly from Lithanian into the Victorian border, nearing the ravine. Yes, it's the Kurfürst's arch enemy, Duke Windermere's army. Duke Windermere announced internationally this is to avoid catastrophe. Silence once again hangs over the hall, but at this moment, with his eyes shut tight, Theresis sees the thick fog outside of Londinium. Once it clears, the battle will come, right on schedule. Footsteps break through Theresis' train of thought. He is forced to open his eyes.
Theresis.
It's you.
Were you asleep?
Perhaps. The Victorian dukes are a cunning lot. They meticulously sift through every word of intel that flows into Londinium, making the Sarkas lose their heads. The advantage isn't ours in this gamble, yet neither have we been at a disadvantage.
The military commission's business is always endless. Such is our history's fragility. Even a single comment on a piece of information awry would suffice to forever damn Kasdal. But even now as we stand in Londinium, things have hardly changed much. You're still as wary as ever.
No. One thing has changed. You're here.
Yes, I am.
The breadth of possibilities has crossed my mind. If you were to take my head, perhaps you would make a much cleaner job of it than I.
You would never think that way yourself. That was a hypothetical put forth by Manfred.
I am always in need of some differing voices.
What's on your mind now?
A dream.
Oh?
I saw us still in Londinium, yet unarmed. Clouds enveloping the city, black stones growing everywhere, and the Sarkas there in the way between catastrophe and the crowd. Once the disaster lifted, the Londinium city gates were wide open to us, and the Victorians stood flanking the streets, cheering and welcoming us in. We entered this palace, and the one sat at the throne no longer feared the black stones that growled from us, and took our hands. He called the Sarkas friends.
It sounds unfathomable.
There was more. I saw Vampire, Nachtseher, and Wendigo set foot together into reaches more northern than even Ursa's, casting fragments of strange monsters back onto the frigid sky. That is a loaded sentence. And I saw Banshee. I just gently pushed the button. Apologies. And I saw Banshee and Damazi venture to parts more southern than even Iberia, walls against the ocean's descent within the boundless water. Countless Sarkas giving their life for this land. And Aslan, Draco, Feline, Capernae, Liberi stood together with them. Also very loaded sentences.
Stood together?
Yes, the Sarkas were no longer the nomads excluded. The land embraced us, and we had roots anew.
This dream.
This dream was not mine. This scenario all originates from what you once described to me. A future the Sarkas could have.
I remember. But you told me then that my ideals were too distant, that it was not only our enemies who could never comprehend me, but neither could the Sarkas. A myriad years of grievances became our weapons, one and all imposed upon me. You also told me that the flames of war within the Sarkas would tear them apart before I led them to that future that was more likely in all respects.
But you begrudged giving up any possibility, even if it may be but a nascent spark. You've also said that this world was once only the Sarkas', that the ancients and the elders wrested our homeland from our forebears' hands. So many loaded sentences. Their souls in death still murmur the Sancta's betrayal, how the royal court withers like autumn leaves, how our bloodline is lost in howls of grief, how ridiculous these sinners are in forgetting history, and how Kazdal ruins through all across Terra. The souls in death still murmur the Sancta's betrayal, how the royal court witnessed And then they cry out. The Sarkas have invaded our homeland. So better than the Sarkas believe in their fight. The fight can herd our destinies together as one. Better that than peace. This isn't fair. To rule is a method of coexistence too.
Terra will perish by its own hand before it confronts those time-old questions.
But our homeland would be more magnificent than the many of the Seaborn. Our hexcrafts would hold the Northern menace at bay. Our knowledge, all-encompassing, would dispel Originium and the catastrophes. Before all that, the Sarkas must reach an answer.
You're right, they must.
This is a conversation we've had countless times, but now you can hear their voices clearly. You can make real contact with their ancient souls' tendrils. So tell me, Theresa, did this myriad of years of all the Tika souls that lived and breathed and passed from life to the other shore in death, did they ever receive a monetary respite? And this reminded me, the word Tikas, or name Tikas, comes up literally in the previous episode's narration that I did, in the name of the arts unit for that Manfred received from Theresa's, Tikaswurzen. Which, now that I thought about it, now that I know it, rather, that Tikas is a name, makes more sense, because the second part of the word, while not the, if my German is not too rusty, not the actual word, Wurzen or Wurzel is the German word for root, as in a plant's root. Very interesting that that's the name for Manfred's arts unit. Anyway,
I've already failed, Theresis.
Because you're a move behind.
Because at this moment, it is we that stand here.
Here. Londinium. Tell me, Theresa. When you stand atop the shard and look at the city, what is it you see?
That Victoria is a nation lush with ingenuity.
Without a doubt, in a few short centuries they've built nomadic cities, withstood catastrophe, even attempted to control the storm. Not to mention those knights of white steam, the valiants of those steel suits of armor that ventured into Kazdel 200 years ago, falls far short of that which I saw in the years to follow.
Perhaps it's the fault of our unique blood for granting so many of us lives far too long. So long that in the intervals between the war and the next we lift our heads only to realize that, accepting the Sarkas, everyone is progressing on.
No, it's nothing to do with the length of an individual's life. They have opportunity to progress, simply because in the past they monopolized the freedom to choose between peace and war. Theresa, when I look at Londinium, I see the number of times this nation has gone wrong. The Victorians scorn how primitive the Sarkas are, yet in essence they simply use the rules of the culture they founded to gild the greed and violence that runs in their deepest marrow. They tear at each other incessantly. Ultimately, everything they've made will be ruined by their own hands. That is why we could win this chance at freedom.
Even if hope is still as remote?
I won't give up on any possibility.
Yes, in that regard, we've always been so alike.
Switching venues. The year 1098. 1:34 p.m. Overcast. Residents of the Duke of Cumberland, Auchterich district of Londinium.
Amia, Doctor, our messenger has just sent back some key intel. The main Sarkas forces are on their way back to the city right now. It's extremely likely this means they're about to wage war with the Duke's armies. But given previous intel, even if they do return to Londinium, the Sarkas military won't be enough to directly contend with all the Dukes. With the Sarkas choosing to act now, they obviously believe they've grasped some key power that'll sway the situation for them.
The Shard.
That skyscraper the Sarkas occupied? We've learned there's weaponry concealed in the building, yes, but will it sway things? It will, Clavisia. Have your people ever taken note of the storm above the Shard? Oh, those dark clouds seem highly unusual. According to the intel we've obtained, that's no normal storm at all. That's a catastrophe the Shard is causing. Even if it isn't entirely the same as a true catastrophe. The Sarkas want to cause a catastrophe. They're still in Londinium themselves. What would they gain from destroying the city?
What if they control where the catastrophe lands?
We're not just conjecturing the Shard's purpose. This weapon, or this technology, rather, is exactly Rhode Island's chief objective in entering Londinium. Rhode Island came for the clouds shrouding Londinium. Yes, it's not just a figure of speech. In the event Theresis does activate the Shard, he'll head the flames of war and the storm together upon those he sees as the Sarkas' enemies. No catastrophe messenger could predict a man-made catastrophe's course. No nomadic city could escape such a catastrophe's assault. Countless Sarkas and Victorians would die in that battle, and it'll likely be even more tragic for those who survive. Most of them will become infected. Not to mention, the Shard isn't on the border, it's in Londinium, a nation's very capital. Which means...
Once the technology is complete, it'll reach anywhere on Terra.
The Sarkas will use Victoria's power to destroy her. If we reach that stage, then everything the Corps has done will be for naught. Even if we could rescue people from a catastrophe as Rhode Island does, Londinium and our livelihood would be past any point of return. Clavicia, Rhode Island is greatly thankful for the Self-Salvation Corps. Without your help, we wouldn't have had no good way into Central Londinium. But neither I nor the Doctor will lie to you. No matter how Rhode Island plans to approach the Shard, the battles ahead will be brutal, each more brutal than the last. If we can't stop Theresis within the next few days, we'll be facing an all-out war, and the Dukes will march with an eye to enter Londinium. If the Corps chooses to wait for the Duke's armies... Amia, we can't do that. I'm the daughter of a textiles merchant. Most of the fighters, in fact, are just ordinary civilians. We have workers, farmers, craftsmen, traders. Our backgrounds are a tapestry of millions, together under the one goal of driving the Sarkas out of Londinium as soon as possible. That's why the Corps won't place all its hopes in the Dukes. Otherwise, we'd never been able to take a stand ourselves. Our greatest fear, if it comes to it, wouldn't even be the Sarkas controlling the Shard. It'd be the Dukes dropping any shred of thought for the ramifications. So, the Corps has no intent on suspend operations? Correct. On the contrary, in fact, with the war on the eve of breaking out, there are some things only the Self-Salvation Corps can do here within Londinium.
Such as gaining as much possible intel on Sarka's supply lines.
We think alike, Doctor. Should the Dukes wage war, the Sarkas will surely have preparations made to hold Londinium. Being a steel fortress, Londinium is self-sufficient to an extent. However, the Sarkas' actions within the city have long since outstripped that load. Still, unlike Londinium's previous master, the Sarkas don't get a drop of evident support from any of the Victorians' other cities. In comparison, while the Dukes do all act on their own liberties, they'll each have their own steady flow of supplies. A supply line. The Sarkas do have some kind of hidden supply line, definitely. Completing the Shard has been a multi-year undertaking. The idea they're relying solely on Londinium's own production is practically impossible. It originates outside of the city, and its terminus is in Londinium, is in a Londinium munitions factory that builds weapons for the Sarkas. Right, if we can locate this supply line,
then the Corps could be decisive in the coming war. We'll be able to delay the birth of a superweapon. Commander Calvicia, cooperation is still our best choice.
I'm afraid so, Doctor.
We need more intel on the munitions factory.
The Corps has a fighter who knows Highbury in and out. Doctor, you know him very well.
Feist?
Right, he's the most suited candidate for this mission. With some minor preparations, he'll lead everyone away from the Sarkas' watch and for the munitions factory.
We still need other, more concrete sources of info.
The Defense Forces Command HQ. It's a tower located at the border between Auchterich and Highbury boroughs, and it controls the info network for the entirety of Londinium's defense system. Given the supply line can penetrate Londinium, there must be records of it lying somewhere in the system.
I heard the majority of the defense forces... There's traitors in the defense top brass, right?
Their commander, Letu, threw himself to the Sarkas a few years back. It would be pointless to try and win backing from a treasonist. If we plan to raid their command tower, we need some other way to seize system privileges. Of course, methods aside, there's the fact that our troops desperately need new armaments. The Sarkas have placed their sights back on the city interior, and our supplies are stretched thin. I'll think of some way to address the supplies needed. Address the supply needs. When it comes to keeping Londinium going day by day, there's still scarcely a Victorian trader who's fallen in line with the Sarkas. Allerdale? However, in turn, there's a different matter that I need you all to help me with. Clovicia, Rhode Island has brought Artorius' relic back to Londinium. Artorius? That's the surname of the Royal Draco's descendants took.
The name that the descendants of the Royal Draco took.
Exactly. I've already checked with the Dr. Renamia. It's the Artorius key, without a doubt. And that key opens the way to the door of the Mausoleum of Kings, which means we can retrieve the Emperor's Blade, the Sigh of Kings. Its significance goes beyond what any ordinary citizens would ever imagine. Trust me, please. It's not just some pretty piece of steel bestowed with symbolism. If we say the shard is Londinium's great incomplete ambition, then the truth of the Victorian Realm Blade and the Mausoleum of Kings, that would be Londinium's real ace in the sleeve. The Victorian Realm Blade isn't just symbolic. Only a few nobles along with Victoria's royal families knew about it, and I happened to be a Cumberland. I believe you. The Mausoleum of Kings is practically a thing of myth to us, but if our royal key can open the door to it... Amia, how exactly did Rhode Island ever get this key? Should I not have asked? We won't conceal the key's history, but it isn't Rhode Island's. It bears tales upon tales that I was never a part of and could never tell you. For Rhode Island's time with it, though, I can tell you bit by bit if you're interested. Thank you, Amia. I'm just floored, really. The legacy of Artorius, the truth of the shard. It's as if Rhode Island really has been preparing for all these years now to be here today in Londinium. But I won't delve any further for now. I won't make anyone else either. It might lose us an important ally. Amia, Doctor, do you have anything else you want to tell me? There is one other thing, in fact. Clovicia, about my background, I'd like to have a chat with you.
And she's about to reveal some stuff to her.
The flowers. Doctor, look at these flowers. They're growing. It's amazing. A place like this, in the middle of Londinium, in a Sarkas occupied city.
For the Sarkas, not letting nobles go is a net plus, but it can't be the same for those around Miss Allerdale.
You're both quite right, Doctor, Miss Amia. Despite it being slightly neglected these past years, the Duke of Cumberland's Manor is still Londinium's most iconic building. I've not much recollection of my home out in the duchy. My childhood memories mostly tie back to here. Nobody would ever truly leave this place to rot, would they? Miss Allerdale, the fact she won't tell, she went to lay everything bare to Miss Clovicia, while it turns out your crew were already wise to Her Highness's identity. I didn't expect that, I'll confess.
Siege is a vital operator of ours.
Well, that reply of yours surprises me even more. Rhode Island knew who Her Highness was, yet have been willing to treat her as Vina, leader of the Glasgow gang. Give Clovicia and Vina some more time. The Corps have their disagreements when it comes to nobles, you know, and Her Highness is going to have a lot to say. I'm sure you have questions for me too, mysterious little bunny. I'd like to jibber-jabber a little with the enigmatic Rhode Island myself, before it's time to mingle with the merchants. Miss Allerdale, is this residence truly secure? Rational question. The Sarkas naturally have their motive for not flushing out the nobles in Central. Londinium's a massive city. There's too much for them to mind. But we've paid a tremendous price to sit in the middle of a war unscathed. Miss Amia, dignity or what have you is the least valuable part of it. Given the chance, I'll explain to Rhode Island in detail, but the Sarkas informants surveilling this manor are under our control, and for now, I ask you, trust me. They haven't realized we've infiltrated them. They're wrong to believe Londinium city nobles lost their every weapon after being isolated. Their mistake. You still have some way to counter Sarka's surveillance? Provisionally. No. If Her Highness has decided to be forthright with the Corps, then it's not my place to be covering up either.
Okay, I don't know what's going on with the sound right now, but it's freaking the hell out. And it's not me doing anything.
For the sake of smooth partnership, I can explicitly guarantee to you all that even now the Cumberland residents as people who can establish extra-city contact. Extra-city, that's... Why am I struggling with that word? But the Sarkas aren't fools. They're well versed in war. Indeed, but like I told you, Londinium's a massive city. They don't have enough people. They're all on their own, and that serves us opportunities. Correct. Seems I haven't satisfied you much with my response. No, Miss Allerdale, I just... worry your burden's too heavy. What? If there really is some way for Victoria to keep control of Londinium as it is now... No, I believe they can. But if they truly can, if they ultimately can, then what is it that they've been doing in practice all these years that they've been having you do?
Allerdale's face clearly twists for an instant. That flash of emotion is immeasurably magnified in Amia's eyes. It's no simple resentment, nor weariness, nor panic. It's grief. A grief so familiar, it hurts.
I apologize, Miss Allerdale. I know I have offended you. Clovicia was right. We don't need to pry into each other. It could very well strain our progress instead, with this complex state of affairs. But, if possible, please don't stifle yourself. We've seen the consequences of that time and again. Miss Allerdale, I'm being too heavy-handed, aren't I? No, Rhode Island just keeps on astonishing me. It seems I was judging you by your cover. I never did imagine you'd be this soft of a leader. You must be at least a decade younger than me.
Soft sort.
You must be at least a decade younger than me, but the look in your eyes is a very real thing. Not to mention, well, you've seen right through me, considering you've even cracked the secret of the shard ahead of Clovicia and I, and brought the Red Dragon's key with you. Honestly, if Her Highness hadn't vouched for you, I might have just been even warier of Rhode Island than the Sarkas. It's true, Londinium, no, the Sarkas to us have more significance still. That's why we're here. Well then, you're here. What are you fighting for? Your Highness gave me a simple synopsis of Rhode Island. You seem to be all sorts of bound up with the Sarkas. But according to what I've heard, Rhode Island has, and has always, worked for the sake of the infected. We do. Then the two of you must have plenty more going on in your heads right now, leader and commander of Rhode Island. As you say, there's a great deal of people and affairs in Londinium that we have inseparable ties to. I'm only speaking personally, and for the Doctor too, when I say that the truth and the past may be enough impetus on their own at this point for us to act. But we've already been through so much. It's long stopped for us previously viewing these struggles and calamities, or placing our individual feelings above the greater problem. That's why we're here to curb a war that would devastate the land, and to dissipate the ground zero of Victoria's woes. To prevent the extinction of a race, to find the lifeline that by all rights we have the methods to seek. To help the infected, the workers, and even the Sarkas that have been desolated. We are here to help people, Miss Allerdale. Every single person with life. Every single person with the right to live. Only in the end that the majority can accept do we trust. Do the truths of the past have any significance?
Amiya finishes her speech with resolution. In Allerdale's clear look of surprise, Amiya can't help but seek her heart. She's spoken her most genuine, sincere mind. Of that, there is no doubt. The operators that work alongside her must surely be filled with the same staunch conviction. Dr. Kalsut stands ever more alone, carrying the weight of ideals. So this ideal's origin, this strong flame of conviction that drives Rhode Island to move in such colossal risk, to rush headlong into this political maelstrom. Who lit it? And what if this answer of hers remains incapable of solving these pressing issues? Oh boy, the setup. Anyway, before we leave off here, I would like to add a couple of new enemies that we have been treated with here to the description, or rather to the narration here. First, we have the Sarka's Royal Court caster. A caster of the Sarka's Royal Court. Sarka's witchcraft is often more dangerous in battle than war machines. They boast a distinctly Sarka's fighting style, but with greater discipline. On the next stage, we have the Sarka's Witherer. Part of the Natzer army, death cannot stop their corrupting presence, as their corpses continue to corrupt the land. And on 11.3, we have the Steam Tank. I mean, they call it a tank, but there's literally just a missile on top, but whatever. Armored vehicle employing Victorian steam technology, even more dangerous when it has taken damage. Alright, but this will be it for today's first part. Like I said, this now will be handled pretty much like any side story on the channel when it airs for the first time, or as a reoccurrence. We'll be doing this every second day, so expect the next part to be out on Sunday, considering this should be out on Friday. And then pretty much every second day will be a part continuing through the story until we are done. But until then, all I can say is thank you all for listening. In the description of the video, you will find links to pretty much this playlist, the playlist for the 3 stories that pretty much carry a lot of weight to this one on top. And if you want to watch the cutscene in crispier quality over on YouTube, the link for that will also be in the description of this video. But in general, like I said, thank you for listening and watching. The next part will continue in 2 days from now. And in the meantime, I hope you all have a fantastic day wherever you are. If you do want so, there's a link to a Discord that I opened for the community for YouTube and Twitch things alike. So if you want to join, hit the link in the description of the video at the bottom. Or even just hit the link for the Twitch, where I stream pretty much every evening. Well, almost every evening. And yeah, I will see you in the next part. But until then, bye-bye.